Welcome to Thought Leader Thursday. Today we have none other than Billy Wagner. And Billy Wagner is known around the industry to have the best systems and processes. But before he had these systems and processes, I kind of want to set the stage with you guys how I met Billy Wagner on the basketball freaking court. And setting that stage, when you play basketball with insurance guys, you got to understand real quickly that their trash talk is terrible. Like you're going to shoot a 3-pointer and someone goes, but that guy has an SR22. And it's just a bunch of freaking garbage trash talk. I bet this is a non-standard 3-pointer right here. You know, he's not going to get the preferred plus on his life insurance table. A bunch of garbage trash talk. But I remember when teams were getting picked, you got your lineup of insurance guys sitting there, and across from me, I'm seeing the team I'm playing, and I see Billy Wagner, and I'm like, I freaking got this white guy. I'm a little taller than him. I'm so much more muscular than him. I'm going to dominate this guy. Like this is gonna be a sad showing for him.
Well, more importantly than what you're saying here, where'd the two of you guys go in this draft?
In the picking order, I have to assume I'm number one. I don't remember. It's a little murky. I
Little
have
foggy,
to assume I
little
was
foggy.
I feel like I'm looking at
want-
James Harden right now.
Doubt it. If it was based on trash talk prior to, you probably were going to be one of the top
Yeah.
picks because you definitely were the loudest.
There was a lot of buildup. And then it was like the scene from Office where Stanley goes out and can't dribble, and that was me. But we get up, and I'm excited to guard Billy. I'm excited to earn my stripes in the insurance community. I'm excited to do all that I can do. And Billy proceeds in that game to pull down 47 rebounds, probably I would say 86 loose balls, and I mean, I don't know if I scored a bucket. If I did, it's only a 3-pointer because I'll start dunking when those are worth 3 points. But I don't know how many points I had, and that was my intro to Billy. And I was like, "Holy crap!"
Every good basketball team needs that blue collar hustler.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised at the talent level of insurance agents that were playing basketball, and we actually were playing in Vegas, and we were playing. Like those of us that were on the East Coast were playing at like 2 o'clock in the morning because that's when we could get the gym space. But it was so much trash talk, and my wife said this is the worst idea ever. There's going to be so many injuries because we're old, and and there was injuries, but Wes, you impressed me. I will say you impressed me. Just a lot of people had very low expectations for probably both of us, and they were pleasantly surprised. So.
There was an Achilles tendon blown. A blown Achilles tendon happened in that game by Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith blew his Achilles tendon. He was dunking that game, so he probably just didn't get a good stretch in. But he blew his Achilles tendon, and the doctors there told him it was just a broken ankle.
This is what happens when you play for the women and not for the team, right? like what are we doing going up above the rim at our age?
He shouldn't have, and I'm glad his Achilles tendon broke. He shouldn't have been dunking on me. That wasn't.
So glad.
I'm just kidding. I love Brandon with all my heart. So Billy, we would like inside this Thought Leader Thursday to provide tactical stuff for people. We're trying to get away from less theory. Everyone hears theory. Let's get some tactical stuff. And I can say for my part, Billy, having looked under the hood of many insurance agency systems and processes, thousands over the years at Agent CVA, your systems and processes have stand the test of time. They sit there in those top three. And I think if you have something that you can give this audience, that would be awesome and powerful.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to help. I think I've made so many mistakes and I've fallen so many times, and I think like just the understanding of like when you need to build a process around something or to understand like where your system is broken, and the idea of designing outcomes, that's kind of one of my skill sets and strengths, but it comes from failing a lot. It comes from a very, very hard start, and it comes from like like using the muscle of trying to figure out what those processes and systems are. And, and one of the cool things, I did a keynote and I asked everybody in the audience, there was about 300 insurance agents. I said, what's the number one challenge you're facing? And the cool thing about that was there was about 5 challenges. And every single challenge in the insurance agency can probably be summed up to those 5 things. And they are people. If you solve the people situation, your business will be so much easier. It's process. If you have good process and systems, your business will flow and you will have a lot less pain points. Leadership. If you are not a good leader and no one's following you, you're going to struggle tremendously. Training. If you're not spending enough time developing and teaching and helping people grow. And the last one, I think, is probably one of the more important ones, is what's the experience you're providing? So if you think about every agency problem you have, it's probably one of those 5 things. And I think the one that most people struggle with is people. And that's kind of the one that I tackled first. And I have probably the most resources around kind of how do you find people? How do you attract them? How do you onboard them? How do you interview them? And, so I think that would be a great thing to kind of spend some time, with today.
What about what do you pay them? Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah.
Cool.
How many people do you currently have under your agency, Billy?
So I have a little bit different of a structure where we have outsourced the service side, but we have 15 people on new business. And that's kind of our structure. There's about 5 on the admin team. We call them the A team, which my team is so young that I don't even get the reference to the A team television show. But it's, and then we've got 9 folks that are on the sales side. And and it comes from a very, again, humble journey. I started the business in 2006 with one other team member, and we had a tiny little office, and I was taking out the trash and doing everything, working 90 hours a week, and and I started that business 18 years ago with the mission of like working myself out of a job, and that's what I've been on that journey, this whole time. And and have gotten past that where really I'm only doing what I have a passion for, and but a lot of struggle along the way, for sure.
I love that. Hey, aside from the people inside your agency, can you let the audience know, like, you've got all these people, what's the size of the book you're working with?
Yeah,
you show me yours, I'll show you mine. One of those conversations.
Yeah, so this year we'll hit a $50 million premium book. That's been kind of that was a 5-year goal about 3 years ago. We're going to be added about 2 years earlier, and that's mostly, a lot of it has to do with, I'm in Florida, so the rate increases were pretty significant over the last several years. But a lot of it is we've got ninjas. I mean, we just got the best people. And we've got processes down. So I'm constantly saying, okay, if this takes 5 minutes, how do I make it take 4 minutes? And the volume that my team does, I mean, most people are very surprised. They'll say, I don't understand how we're doing about $1 million in new business a month, green. So like the growth trajectory is pretty significant. And I think about 5 years ago, we were doing about $5 million a year in new growth. And I think we really transformed by putting in a lot more systems and scaling and adding VAs and stuff like that really helped us propel to kind of where we are now. So it's 9 people doing 9 salespeople doing about $1 million a month. So it's a significant result, but it's been, like I said, a lot of trials and a lot of mistakes and a lot of figuring it out along the way.
Billy, if you could speak to the level of success that you rose to prior to being more systematic versus now where you are very structured and processed and all of that, what got you to the point you got to before you systematized, and then what was that moment, that epiphany where you were like, oh man, I gotta get more serious if I'm going to take this up to the next level?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think early on, I think anyone that's in like the first 5 years of this business, it's one of the hardest things you can ever do. It's very, very challenging, and you really just got to put your head down and just grind through it. The margins are so small, and that's kind of what I did. I mean, I grinded, and I was the top salesperson, and I thought no one could sell more than me, and I was just grinding, right? And so, but when I figured out how to scale was probably about 5 to 7 years in, how to scale with people. And I think that's probably the biggest difference is when you start building a team and you step out of production and you start like allowing them to succeed and basically making your mission to have them become successful. And I started putting processes around attracting great talent, and developing a great talent, and really it's not a home run. There's always a bunch of singles where it's like, we figured this out. And I think if you were to ask me like, what is kind of this, I think we just have this constant and never ending improvement mentality that we're just going to keep getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And you start doing that for 18 years, you start to have success. So I think to me, it was when I figured out the people side, how to solve that. That was probably our biggest change.
You mentioned at the beginning of that answer that early on the margins were so much smaller, and they are so much smaller in the beginning. In the beginning, I've always kind of referred to it as the storm, like getting out of that storm in the first couple of years or whatever. What percentage of the revenue that you were bringing in those first 5 years were you reinvesting back into the agency? And I think it's an important thing to talk about because one of the things that we've experienced with a lot of the agents that we work with is a lot of them get to a point where it's like, all right, the bills at the agency are paid. Now I can start bringing some money home. What did you do early on?
Yeah. And I think that was a mistake that I made too early on is I wasn't, I was trying to find the least expensive staff that I could hire because I couldn't really afford it. And when I realized how expensive that was later on, because like you spend a little bit more money and you get a better quality person, it makes a huge difference. So I when I figured out like most of the stuff I was investing back in. So I mean, I left a six-figure job to start this business, and my first year I made $6,000, and I worked like as hard as I've ever worked in my life. And I was lucky that at the time my wife was working full time as an occupational therapist, and so we were able to survive on kind of her income the first couple of years. And so I put everything I could back into the business, and I think if you put my trajectory around the people that started around the same time as me, I passed them, a long time ago because I was investing more back into the people, into the systems, into, our marketing strategy. I was investing a lot into building relationships and to developing the team. And I think that paid off a lot for sure.
Well, it's funny because I don't think a lot of agents think this way, but the reality is with everything that we're doing, whether it's sales or things that we're trying to implement culturally or anything like that, it needs to be performed a certain amount of times before it sticks. And when you are not reinvesting back into the agency and you're not getting growing the team and making those mistakes early and not growing the team and all of that, what you're doing is you're really kind of expanding the amount of time it's going to take before you get to that point where you've taken your lumps, learned your lessons, and gotten yourself to that place. So I agree 1,000%.
Yeah.
So if people have been your focus and that's, where you spend a lot of your bandwidth, where do you start there? How do you start there? Because I think it'd be really powerful if we could kind of see like a start to finish. This would be like a step one, what I would do, because I think all of us want $50 million agencies, but I know speaking for my agency, it's not even freaking close. So if I want to start on this path, what is something I can do? How do I start to get there and to get this evolving and moving well?
Yeah. And I know, like we said, let's not talk about theory, but I think it is important to kind of have a vision of where you want to go and like what you want your North Star to be. Like, what are you chasing? What are you after? And I was always chasing something. I was always like, well, we wrote this year, next year we're going to write this. And so I think that's important. It's important from a leadership standpoint for you to be chasing and for your team to know what you are chasing. So setting that vision out. And I always we have this goal. My whole team knows that we're trying to get to the 50 million mark, and we'll do it this year. But they know what happens to them when we get there. We've shared that vision with them, and they know what it looks like. And so they're also trying to achieve that with me. On the people side, where I would start is, again, I would look at how you're recruiting. I think we're doing this wrong in our industry all over the place in so many ways, where we're putting ads on Indeed and we're asking for customer service reps, and the population has no idea what a customer service rep is. And so we're doing a terrible job of describing our business, recruiting people into it, and finding talent. And the old methods of doing it no longer work. And so, when we put an ad on now, we get 300 applicants, and we do it by land, air, and sea. There's a bunch of different ways. So again, I could probably talk for an hour on just that subject alone. But I would say changing your title of what your ads are, putting testimonials from your team, increased our exposure by 500%.
Wow.
So telling them what it's like to work there and getting people excited about it and growing that, almost building a referral base for recruiting talent so that you get a lot of folks coming in so that you can pick the very best one. And we developed 21 steps to interview. What our interview process is. We started with 3, and over 18 years now we have 21, right? And it's every single time we add another step.
You're saying don't just call them into your office for an interview and just think up of questions on the spot and wing it, and if you like them, hire them. Are you saying don't do that?
Exactly, right. We're salespeople, so we love everyone, and we're like, oh God, this is my savior to everyone, and we make so many mistakes.
How many people early on did you hire because they were almost like a mirror of you, and you just kind of got off on the fact that you jived so well with them?
Yeah, I mean, we made a ton of mistakes. One of the things that we got lucky with is we recruited in the colleges that were local to us, and we started to get some traction there, and that was a huge win. There is a program called Handshake, which is basically an online platform that the colleges use, so you can sign up for a profile with them, and it basically allows you to look at the applicants that are in the college and also build a profile for yourself. And so once you get one or two in the younger folks in the college, and we just trick them, we're like, this is a great business, come here, let me show you. And we're like, start part-time. And it's, that's the reality. It's,
one day you can own this place.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what an interview is too. It's like two people lying to each other, right? So you're saying how great you are in the businesses, and they're saying how great they are. And, somewhere the truth is there. But once you get some younger talent, and they tell their friends, then you're really scaling, because you're getting this incredible talent that probably was on a different career path. But then once they're there for a few years, they realize that this is a career. And so that's why it's kind of get them in there and then build a pathway for them and show them what it could look like. And that's really been our secret sauce. We've gotten a lot of folks from that channel. And I think, and then also what a lot of folks are missing right now is they don't have a plan, right? So they don't have a plan to hire them. And you don't need to do you don't need to have 21 steps. You just have to have a structure that says, I'm going to have 5 steps or 7 steps, whatever it is. But then more important than that is, what is the structure in the step once they start? No one's ever going to be more excited than the first time that they work with you, the first day, the first week, the first 2 weeks. We spent hours and hours trying to figure out how to make that so amazing. And then we built a 12-week training program that is timed to the minute, so that they will be an absolute ninja. And what that allows us to do is to recruit anyone. We don't hire anyone with experience. We bring them all in and we build them through that process and system. But, we do a life plan with them, and then we do a business plan, and it structures all of that stuff together. And I think that's probably the best thing that I can give as kind of a takeaway, is that business plan that we do. just because it's got so much data on there, and it's just a different way to kind of look at that structure that you have with team members.
One of the things that I noticed about Billy's team, which is awesome because I've met him in person, Billy came to the island. He came to Puerto Rico, and he said, "Come meet my team." And of course, in my head, it's like Mel Stellenpel. I'm gonna go. I've been to about a million of these, and so like a bunch of 54-year-olds, that's what I'm gonna go meet, and it's gonna be fun. I always have fun there, but whatever. And I get there, and his staff is so young, and they're so the chemistry is insane. Like I'd never seen this. I had never seen such a young. They liked each other. The energy was off the charts. There was extreme diversity. It was really, really a unique thing. But I think my greatest takeaway, even more than their age, that they were a bunch of young folk, was that these guys liked each other. Like these guys, like we played a game when we got there and had fun and ate nice food, and it was exceptional. More often than not, when I visit staff, within about 30 seconds, I could be like, "Dude, Sally CSR hates freaking her. She's glaring at her the whole freaking time. There's serious daggers." This was like it was like you're going to hang out with your buddies. It was relaxing, and they liked each other, and I think that's attributed to your systems and processes.
Yeah, and that trip was amazing, and I think Wes was like second place in Flip Cup. He's like, I've never played Flip Cup before, and he's like almost won, which I was very impressed by because we got some talented Flip Cup players on our team. But
I dropped out of college. I dropped out, so I didn't get to experience these games. And my wife was with me, and she's like, "Oh gosh, no, I'd never seen this. I'd never seen this." And I'm like, "Wait. You flip a cup. This sounds exceptional. I'm already in there. But then if you lose, you get to drink more. Yeah, okay. Like so, well, this is like the best game ever. But the competitive juices, I was going up like me and that one guy were at the end like almost every time. Like I wanted to lose because I wanted to drink, but I wanted to beat this guy. And so it was such a fun night. That was I basically took all my college years that I missed out on for dropping out of college, and I did it in that night, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was super fun, like that, and that was another vision thing that we did with our team, where we said we wanted them to build 100 new relationships, and a relationship to us is a center of influence. So it's a mortgage broker, a lender, and if we develop, and they had to send us 5 pieces of business to count as a new relationship. And so 2 years ago, that's what we did. We said, if you develop 100 new relationships, and we have a process and a system that we do that, there's a whole method to it, but they did it. I mean, and they did like 120 new relationships by October. And I told them that we were going to Puerto Rico, and we wanted to go see our team member from Agency VA that was based in Puerto Rico. And we made a huge deal about it. We put our sole focus on building relationships, and the team just crushed it. I should have made the goal 200. Had I known, they probably would have hit that too. But what a cool experience to take them to Puerto Rico. I know you guys just went there. It's one of my favorite places.
Horrible place. I'll never go back.
Yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. I had no idea that Puerto Rico was as mountainous as it is. I was picturing it to be solely beaches, but you get the beaches and the mountains, which for me, I love them both. So to have them both there is pretty incredible.
I still have cuts on my feet from hiking up the river barefooted to the waterfall. My daughter walked in the room the other night and looked at like the bottom of my feet. She said, "Daddy, what's wrong with your feet?" I'm like, "Oh, if you only knew the pain of those rocks." So, no, Billy.
Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
A lot of agents will reach out and say, "Hey, I found someone I want to hire. Like, now what? Like, how do I structure the pay? Like, what do I actually have them do?" And when it's their first hire, a lot of agents kind of hit that wall of excitement. I've got somebody that shows potential, but now what? Like, how do y'all approach that?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I think it's a question that's on everyone's mind. And we've gotten a lot better at this, and honestly, in the last 6 months, we've gotten even better about like building the pathway for them. And so, if I was starting over, I would do this exact, like, obviously I have a foundation, I've got structure and all that stuff now, but if I was starting over, I would do this exact same way. And what it is we bring everyone on as a client concierge, and they will learn. And I told you we have a 12-week training process. It's not that it's all 12 weeks of training. Like, that's kind of an insane amount of time if you think about like what's reasonable. But what we do is we teach them one thing that first week, and then the second week we teach them something new, but then they're practicing that first thing that they did. And so the first thing we're kind of teaching them is how to look up a client, how to attach documents into the system, and then that becomes what they learn to help the team so that we can develop them even more. But what I mean by like putting them in that client concierge position, I don't care what you intend for them to do, they're going to do that role first. And it might be for 90 days, it might be for 6 months or a year, but that position leads them into the next position they're going to do, which for us is called a junior producer. And I created that idea, and it's like when I did the math and the numbers on it, I was doing things wrong. We were paying salespeople way too much early on for handing them business. So I had to build a solution for that. And my solution was this junior producer role. So they start out a client concierge. There's a structure where they're learning how to answer the phone, attach documents, do kind of that admin role. But then we start teaching them how to do quoting. So when they'll onboard and set up a new client, and they'll do the flood quote, and then they'll do the auto quote. So they're learning the next step in the current step that they're in. And then when they become a junior producer, they're going to sit in that position maybe for a year, maybe for 18 months, maybe for 6 months. And they have to validate their way out of that position to become an agent. And we've made an agent in our office almost like a law partner. That's a hard thing to achieve. You don't just go right to there. You work your way there, and they have to validate it by passing our secret shops, which we secret shop our own office because we want to validate and have accountability to our standards. They have to pass that. They have to be an expert in all 5 lines that we offer. They have to cross sell. They have to build rapport. They have to develop relationships, and we teach them through scale how to do all those things. But until they can prove they can do it, we don't make them an agent. And then when they become an agent, their compensation gets better. And then we built levels of compensation for them as an agent so that whenever they validate, it also gets better. So that's kind of how we structure it now. And I would do it again the exact same way. If I had 2 people right now, I'd bring them on as a client concierge. I'd make them a junior producer. I would develop them, and then that would make them an agent.
So Billy, you obviously have an exceptional agency, and you've got great systems and processes and all that kind of stuff. The average new employee that comes to you doesn't know that they've been, inserted into a fantastic machine in a great agency. They just know that they're working for an insurance agency, especially if they're green. What kind of fallout do you have when they become that junior role before becoming an actual agent, knowing that they may be hearing from other agents and agencies that are willing to just make them an agent now, and them not knowing they're going to get parachuted into an absolute mess? Because like, I used to work in banking prior to insurance. I moved from Chase to Citibank. I thought it was going to be moving from McDonald's to Burger King, and it was like the furthest thing from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, there's going to always be like agents that are desperate and they're going to pay you more on the front end, but it's going to be such an expensive process for you because you're not going to be developed and you're not going to grow. And so what I tell people early on is that I don't know how long you're going to be with me, but one thing that I know is that you are going to grow exponentially with us, and you're going to be not only a better person personally, but also professionally. And so I just ask them to, and I never put a ceiling on what they can earn either, but I don't pay them a lot up front. And that's the reason. So I kind of have to explain that to them. Like, this is the thing. And I'm very upfront and very transparent about what it looks like and what they can earn. And again, I'm just looking for great attitude, people that are grateful. That's a really key thing. Like, finding people that are grateful is so huge. That's why I love like the agency VA folks, because that's who they are. But if you find those great people, and honestly, we're bringing them into the business, so they're brand new to the business, right? And so that's kind of, I think, the difference is we built a system to make them valuable early on as much as we can, but then develop them into a great agent over time. So that's kind of, and then a lot of it stems too from, we've developed a system to build referrals, and so we get 5,000 or 6,000 referrals a year. So we have a pipeline of business for them to execute with. And if they were out hunting and killing and all of that, they would probably potentially have a higher commission split with somebody else than they would with us. But we're also kind of helping them succeed over time, with opportunity. So
have you ever had conversation with an employee who left you for greener pastures after they left you?
yeah, that happened to me early on. I recruited somebody that was a manager at McDonald's, and I taught him the business, and he went on to open his own. And I realized that I didn't have the right pathway for him. So it was a really good lesson to understand, like, he would have been much more successful in my system if he had stayed, but I didn't have the structure built out. I didn't have the process built out, and I didn't have the vision for it. So that's where I failed, and I was like, I got to fix that. And that's kind of why I built that. So there was people that were with me at the same time that he was, and he did okay as an agency owner. He's still an agency owner and he's doing fine. But the person that stayed with me is making 3 times what he is without the headaches and the hassle. And I just didn't have a good way to illustrate that. And I didn't understand, how to kind of tell that story at the time. So yeah, there's absolutely those scenarios where people are going to always think the grass is greener and they can go do it on their own. And, and now I have a structure that if that's what they want to do, I'll help them. Right. It's like, there's so much business out there. If they want to, then we'll help them succeed. And I'm not a person that wants a lot of locations or anything like that. But if somebody wanted to do that on my team, I would make that opportunity available to them. So it's just a matter of like getting a great group of people and then giving them opportunity and figuring out how to make it all work,
Yeah.
That
Common
platform,
question. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say that platform that you spoke about earlier, I think you called it Handshake.
Yeah.
Is that a national program or something local to you in Florida?
No, it's national. So it's anywhere. All the colleges have it. So that's something you can use anywhere in the US. Great tool for sure. And then once you get somebody on board there, what you'll find is that there's classrooms where you can do like internships or start people part-time. And that's kind of what we did, early on. We were like, why don't you work 25 hours a week for us and see what you think? And, again, we tricked them. We're like, come on over here. And then now that it's a career for them. So it's been cool.
Yeah. A common question that always pops up in Soup is, should I pay my producers on the new business and the renewal, or should it just be new business? Kind of where do you go with that?
Yeah, great question. So again, this is something that I learned over time, and I do give them a piece of the renewal, but only at validation 3. So they have a level 3 validation where they get the renewal, but the renewal is actually a little bit of an annuity for them where they earn it from the first policy they write, but they don't earn it until they validate the profitability of their role. So I look at every team member as a separate business in a sense. So like, what are the costs associated with it? What is the revenue that's generated from it? And when they hit a certain validation point, I make their compensation better. And so I either give them a bump to their salary or a bump to their new business commission, or I add support like a VA to them, or then I also add renewal. So that's why I have those 4 levels. And so every level, it gets a little bit better for them when they become a profitable team member. And so there's that validation point for the business owner and for the agent. And a lot of times we're missing that. Like, what's that number? What's the correct time to make that transition? Mm-hmm. And so we make sure that they validate that level, whatever it is, for a 3-month period. And when they do that, then we move them up a level in their compensation. And the level of renewal commission also can go up from level 3 to level 4, even a little bit more as well.
Yeah, it's smart. I've gone through the numbers with many agents and had to show them, really break down and say, like, if you're given X away on new business and Y on the renewal, but your overhead and expenses are Z, like, where do you fit into this puzzle? Because there's not enough meat, left on the bone, and they lock themselves into, producer agreements where at the end of the day, it's not profitable.
Yeah, and a lot of folks are doing like this commission only because they can't afford, to give them some sort of stability foundation salary. And the commission only, I've found about 1 in 20 people can actually survive that in our business. And so if you find somebody, that's fine. I would not build a whole business model out of that. And because what happens is for the first 3 years, it's probably pretty good for you as the owner because you're not paying a salary. But then after that, it becomes very bad for the business owner. And so, then you've got this legacy agent that is making this money on the renewal. They're not as hungry, their growth isn't there, and they're living on that renewal nest egg without, the incentive for the growth. So I think that it's good to have a balance. It's good to have validation points, and it's good to understand the math. It's good to know, okay, when is it time to kind of make it better for them, and explaining to them what those numbers are and what happens. And I built a little Excel file that basically just says, this is what year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 looks like, and try not to make it overcomplicated. And just basically show them the opportunity and never put a ceiling on what they can earn, so that they don't feel like they've been taken advantage of. And that they are a profitable team member and at which degree they are, and you can always make it better for them.
Very, very smart.
And I think the other thing too is with, what we're not good at. A couple of things that I see as like big challenges that we overcame, but I see it's rampant in our industry. One is, we talked about, like, there's no training process. And so it's like you sit with Sally for 2 weeks and hopefully you pick up so there's no process around training. And I think it's an investment for the long term, and it's hard to do, but it's so critical if you're going to have long-term success to invest in the training. And I think the other thing is clearly defining what winning looks like, and what, everyone wants to be successful in the role that they're in. They just don't know all the things that make them successful. And so when we give them a business plan, the very top of it says, this is what winning looks like. Here's all the things that cause you to win and what our most successful people are doing. And it allows you to have the right conversations. It allows you to say, like, having your cell phone put away during the workday is the right thing. And you got to have that conversation because those distractions are everywhere, right? Showing up on time and, like owning your area, meaning that, like, if you have some responsibility, you own it. So it allows you to have these correct conversations, and everyone wants to do a good job, but we as agency owners are not giving them crystal clear instructions on what that looks like. And so we have about 15 of those key things. We put it at the very top of that business plan. And that's kind of the foundation, so that when you're here for 3 months and people go, how are you doing? You know exactly how you're doing because you have something to measure it against, and something very specific that they can, kind of look at and go, okay, this is where I need to adjust or improve on. And then the other part of it is, what are the KPIs? What are we looking for from like your area? This is what you need to own. And then this is your weekly accountability and your quarterly accountability of, like, where the benchmarks are, like where you should be. And it's just, again, very, very clear on what their responsibilities are. And then it will have kind of their compensation, their benefits. And that's one thing that we've done, in 18 years, every single year for 18 years, we've improved the benefit package. We've just made it better. Whenever we could, we did something to make it better. And we'll constantly continue to keep doing that. But it's all, again, laid out, and then they know the pathway too, because we built this pathway and we lit it up for them, and that says, okay, here's where you're going to start, and this is your next position that you're going to go to.
I don't know about you guys, but I personally have been taking a lot of notes throughout this call. So, you've been teaching me quite a bit around how to go about bringing someone up through the ranks properly and giving them a nice career path in the process, rather than just inserting someone into the role, crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I think, like, the one of the things that, again, if I think of, like, just trying to be as helpful as possible, like the accountability piece, like with our team, is so hard. I think, like, Harvard did a study, or somebody did a study, that like 7% of leaders are good at accountability. And what I tried to do is build a system where there was a scoreboard and there was clear instructions, so that the accountability is innate. It was just built into the organization, so that everyone knows who wins or who loses based on the scoreboard that's there, and the scoreboard doesn't lie. And I tell my team, like, it's not like a high pressure, I got my thumb on you, but there's a standard that's very high, and if someone's not hitting it, it's very obvious, and I just tell people, don't ever be last 2 weeks in a row on anything that we're holding you accountable for, because we don't hold them accountable to very many things. So don't be last twice. And so I think that accountability piece, and that's why we do the secret shop, because I used to think, well, they were following my scripts and my process and my systems, and they weren't. There was about 60% or 70% that were. The others were not, and now they 100% are. And the wonderful thing about the secret shop is we do it twice a month, very inexpensive, but now my staff thinks that every single call is a secret shop, right? So they're doing all the steps and all the process every time. How valuable is that? I think it costs me like $150 a month. It's probably one of the more value things that I get, because now I know they're building rapport, they're cross-selling, they're talking about different lines, they're asking for the business, they're sending 3 follow-ups in the first 24 hours, all because they know that I'm checking and that someone's going to be watching. And that's just natural. People will follow the path of least resistance. And that has been a huge win.
Well, I remember in a previous life when I was in banking, we would get secret shops, fairly frequently. And I would say one of the more common conversations amongst the staff was, oh, that guy was totally a shopper.
Yeah.
And it very rarely was.
Yeah. 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 It's funny because the team thinks that they know and they don't always know. And, and we have to be creative too, but it's always like it's a house for sale, right? But a lot of our transactions are a house for sale because that's kind of our focus. So they really can't always tell, but sometimes they can. But again, it's just sending the right message, and it's very like public. Like they're gonna be called out if they mess up. And again, it's again another way to build accountability without me going, hey, why are you screwing up? It's like the results are there. This is what you did, and if they crush it, we pay them like they would have sold the policy. So there's no downside to them of like, oh, I wasted my time on that. So we just give them the full commission if they hit the correct things on there.
That's awesome. I was going to ask if there was a reward attached to, passing versus just viewing it more, from a negative standpoint. So it's definitely a good way to spin it to where they're still excited and treat it the same, because commission wise, it's no different.
Yeah.
I feel like this call could go on for hours. You're definitely a brilliant and experienced agent. How could agents reach out to you, get in contact with you if they had questions? What's the best way?
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So you can reach me on there. I've been in this business for, again, 18 years, and there's a lot of folks that have helped me. I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And, I admire a lot of you guys, like what you're doing, and you're showing up differently. And I just want to do that. That's really my, like, what is your North Star? What makes the hair on the back of my neck stick up is helping people. And that's really my only motivation. And those that know me know that that's true. I did write a book that I put a lot of the stuff that I do inside that book, and all the proceeds go to charity. We're doing some really cool stuff with doing makeovers for nonprofits. And so,
Awesome.
So there's some really cool stuff there. So yeah, you can reach me online.
Get us a link for that book, Billy, so we can
Absolutely.
have Scoop have an opportunity to decide if they want to check it out.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I think paired with that link, Billy, if there's an actual PDF or document, something tangible with some steps of things that we went through. I know a lot of people only know anymore me as Wes, the owner of Agency VA, but I also have an insurance agency. So if you have like some document that I can use, I'm going to take that document and apply these things. And so I think that would be a great thing in conjunction with the book. But this was very, very awesome. And I knew that Mr. Wagner would deliver. I learned to never doubt him after he, pulled 72 boards on me. In basketball.
We actually haven't made it public yet, but we met Billy for the first time last May out in Utah, and we spoke briefly, and I knew immediately that you were a very, very sharp guy. And then as the months went on from last May when we met, every time I saw you participating in Soup, I said to myself, I would go, huh, That was pretty smart. Huh. Every time this guy talks, I want to hear him talk more.
He
And
didn't use all of his good stuff in Utah.
no, well, that's for damn sure. I don't think any of us had enough time to give all our good stuff in Utah. There were too many talented people in one room. But you know, as I've been observing Billy for the past year, and every time he opens his mouth, going, there he goes saying something smart again. You know, we haven't even announced it to the audience yet, but we actually recently invited Billy to take the stage at Soup Live this May. So
Yeah, very excited about that.
yeah,
Love that.
if you've been enjoying the information and the education that's been shared here today, I can only imagine what you know, a block of focused time without a bunch of, you know, beardos interrupting you for questioning is going to provide the audience. So super excited to have you there too.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It looks like a awesome venue. You guys have built a really cool reputation for the event. I know you haven't been doing it that long, and I'm excited to kind of again meet some new folks. I think that's the best thing about those things is the friends that you get to follow up with, and then also to meet new ones. And that's been my favorite part of like this insurance journey is just kind of meeting the folks. And I'm grateful to kind of be able to spend some more time with you guys and look forward to doing more of that.